What if Hitler had won World War II? Take a moment, close your eyes and imagine this. A world under the shadow of the Third Reich. A world where the swastika flies above every capital, where the very air is thick with oppression and fear, where freedom is a distant memory, wiped away like chalk on a blackboard. This is not a far-off dystopian novel. This is a nightmare that could have been. A world where the very essence of humanity, as we know it, has been twisted beyond recognition. But how did it happen? How did we get here? Let's turn back the clock. The year is 1945. The world is on fire. The war is almost over. In our history, the Allies triumphed. Nazi Germany crumbled. But what if it hadn't? What if history took a different turn that day? What if the Nazis had achieved victory? It's easy to think it's impossible. The Nazis were defeated, right? But consider this. If just one or two key events in history had unfolded differently, the entire future of our world could change forever. What if Hitler's invasion of Russia had succeeded? What if the United States hadn't joined the war? What if the Allies had been too slow or too weak to respond to the Axis powers? In this alternate world, the Third Reich doesn't just survive, it thrives. Now, we move to 2025. This isn't the world we know. This is a world ruled by Nazi ideology, a world where Hitler's twisted vision has come to life. Imagine it. Germany controls Europe. And not just Europe. Nazi influence stretches across the globe. There are no more free nations. No more democracy. Everything, every aspect of life, has been bent to fit the ideals of a dictator who believed in the supremacy of one race above all others. In this world, the war didn't end in 1945. No, it didn't end at all. It just kept going, slowly consuming everything in its path. The final push for a total domination came not with the death of the Führer, but with his rise. And it was terrifying. Berlin was no longer just a city. It was a heartbeat of the world. The Third Reich built its empire by using fear, propaganda, and raw power to crush any resistance that dared to defy it. The Nazis invaded, wiped out anyone who stood in their way, and made sure the world would never look the same again. So, how did we get here? How did humanity end up living in such a terrifying reality? Let's step into this nightmarish alternate 2025, where the Third Reich's triumph has left a chilling, lasting scar across the earth. First, we turn to the West, to the United States. Imagine that America, after years of suffering under the strain of constant conflict, is a broken shell of what it once was. No longer a superpower, a puppet to Germany. Imagine that Germany now controls much of North and South America. The Reich's control is absolute, and the United States, while still holding on some semblance of power, is forced to serve the will of the Nazis. And then there's Britain, the once proud island nation that stood strong against the Nazi invasion. But now, it's nothing more than another conquered territory. The British people, who once stood against the tyranny of the Reich, have been beaten into submission. The British monarchy is nothing more than a symbol, a shadow of what it once was. The land of Winston Churchill has now fallen silent under the weight of the swastika. But let's look at the rest of the world. Germany, with its incredible war machine and its propaganda prowess, turned Europe into a vassal state. The nations of the continent fell like dominoes. Poland, France, Spain, Italy, each bent to the will of the Führer. There are no borders now. There are no alliances. There's only the Reich. But that's just the beginning. The true horror lies in the ideology that permeates every corner of the world. In this 2025, the world is a place where the Nazi regime rules over every aspect of life. A place where racial purity is demanded, and any deviation from the Aryan ideal is punishable by death. The world we live in is not free. It's a place of constant surveillance, a place where dissent is not tolerated and resistance is crushed without mercy. You might think, this sounds too far-fetched. This sounds too horrific to imagine. But think again. The seeds of this nightmare were planted long ago. The Nazis didn't just want to conquer land. They wanted to reshape humanity itself. And in this world, they've done just that. Now, think about the way this alternate world would operate. The culture? Erase. Books, art, music. Anything that doesn't fit the Nazi narrative is gone. The very essence of human creativity, human expression, would be stripped away. The world would be controlled by a single idea, the supremacy of the Aryan race. Every culture, every tradition, every belief, if it didn't fit this one idea, would be destroyed. There's no room for diversity. There's no room for difference. There's only room for those who fit into the mold of what the Reich considers pure. And what about the people living in this world? Imagine the fear in the air. Imagine waking up every day knowing that someone is watching you, knowing that a wrong word, a wrong action could be your last. Imagine walking down the street and seeing the faces of the SS on every corner, watching, judging, ready to strike at any moment. This isn't a world of hope. It's a world of terror, a world where your every action is scrutinized, your every word measured, your very thoughts considered potential crime. But the scariest part of all, it's not just the fear of the regime itself. It's the knowledge that this world, this dark reality, is what happens when the worst of humanity is allowed to take root and grow. As we continue to explore this alternate history, consider what would happen next. What would happen to civilization? What would happen to humanity? In this world, there is no room for rebellion, no room for revolution, no room for hope. Resistance movements exist, of course. They always do. But they are small, scattered, and crushed under the weight of the Reich's war machine. But what if one day, just one day, a spark of resistance grew into something more? What if the world, after years of suffering, finally stood up and said, enough? Could the Reich's empire fall? Would humanity ever be able to free itself from the shackles of Nazi control? As we finish this terrifying journey into an alternate future, let's remember one thing. This world, this nightmarish world, is a result of unchecked power and tyranny. But our world, the world where we still have freedom, where we still have choice, is something worth fighting for. It's something worth protecting. Because in the end, the real horror isn't the future that could have been. The real horror is the possibility that history could repeat itself. That, under the wrong circumstances, the world could fall back into darkness. And that, my friends, is why we must always remember the lessons of history. To protect what we have, to fight for what's right, and to ensure that the horrors of the past never come to life again. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey through an alternate future. Stay vigilant, stay free, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest corners of history.